It is a great mystery, and it's a remaining great mystery. So what we know is that not all beings on this planet are having a nervous system, let alone brain. The beings which are actually the most successful, which have been here around like billions of years before us, and which will remain here billions of years after us, actually don't have any nervous system. These are plants and trees and so on. So it's interesting that the moment, the evolutionary moment when a nervous system becomes necessary or mandatory is the moment when a being life on this planet decides it wants to move. It does not want to be on the same spot, but it goes around. You know, there's a beautiful animal called some sea plant, which is on the floor of the sea for most of its life, but then as a larvae, as a in short moment of its development, it detaches from the ground and it flows to another part of the sea. And at this brief moment, it actually builds up its brain, because now it needs the brain. Why it needs the brain? Because the conditions are changing from seconds to seconds. And then after it retaches, after it becomes plant or immobile again, it, what we call, auto-digests its own brain. So it eats its own brain because it doesn't need it anymore. So the reason the brain was, or nervous system was created, it's quite prosaic. It's not because I want to write beautiful poetry. It's not because I feel love in my heart. No, it is because I want to move, and in order to move, I must make predictions from milliseconds to milliseconds. So brain actually is a big organ of prediction. But now what makes human brain different from all the brains or nervous system in the chain of evolution, that's a million-dollar question. We know for a very long time we thought it is actually the ability to not only to learn but to teach your own children. And then, of course, you know, there was these beautiful experiments and life life stories when zoologists would tell us, no, monkeys, the primates, can teach their own offspring. So we are not the only being which can teach its offspring, which can pass its knowledge to the new generation. So then some people said, oh, it is maybe prediction, it is maybe meta thinking. So I need like 5 categories to come from A to B. But again, we know that we are not the only being which can think very logically and think in 4 or 5 steps ahead. I mean, there are some birds, crows, you know, which would do it in like 5 steps to come to the food. However, what maybe is different in our species is that it's not all about food. It's not all about here and now. It is very much also about other human fellow. It's about society. It's about generations which will come, maybe not the next generation, but maybe 10 generations ahead of me. Is the destiny of the planet. It's the enjoyment of art, of music, you know. So it's something which one would say it's very much neuroscientists would say it's very much of a frontal function. It's very much of a function which have developed in the last couple of millions of years ago. So if we split from monkeys or from their predecessors like 8 million years ago, then probably in the last million years ago, nature worked very, very much in our anterior part of the brain, in our frontal lobe, which made us actually very reflexive being, which made us a being of empathy, which made us a being of morality, of self-reflection, of a theory of mind. So I have a theory that you may feel very much the same as I do now. So all these things, I think, are different. They are not different in terms of basic physics or basic chemistry. It's all the same. You know, the neurons of the worm are just the same as the neurons of Einstein. It's something else, and this else we don't know exactly what it is. Many people would say it's a huge amount of combination of you know, we are having about 84 billion neurons, and every neuron, every brain cell can connect with up to 10,000 other cells. So it's an astonishing number of combinations. So maybe that's our mystery. Maybe our mystery is something else. It's maybe some specialized cells. We know that in the brain we're having special cells, so-called mirror cells, which enable me to be to step in your shoes and to feel your pain becomes my pain, your happiness becomes my happiness. So these are the mirror neurons. Then we are having also some other neurons. They are called von Economo. He was a famous neurologist. Von Economo cells. They are very, very, very long, connecting distant parts of the brain, and they are particularly growing when a being, a sentient being, becomes social. So we are having huge number of these von Economo cells, but also some other, maybe 4 or 5 other species are having von Economos, you know, like the dolphins, like the chimpanzees, elephants. So basically beings which are social. Different sort of societies, you know. In elephants, you know, there are this maternal group. Then, so social. Then they are communicate. Sort of, they want to communicate. They communicate in different ways. We communicate with words, but you know, dolphins communicate in another way. And they seem to be rather or vaguely aware of mortality, or, you know, when elephants come across dead elephants, or the elephants which died a year ago and there are only their bones there, they would stop. They would touch the bones with great respect, and you can feel they are sad. You can feel the sadness of being faced with mortality in a chimpanzee mother, you know, who can't give up her dead baby. And there was this beautiful scene. You know, there are many nowadays on internet. You can learn so much from the internet. When in the Sydney's Gulf, you know, you could see this, I think it was dolphin, you know, whose baby was dead for many days. But, you know, she wouldn't give it up. She has to emerge on the surface every couple of minutes, you know, in order. So for a week or so, you know, she would carry its baby. So there are certainly specificities of human brain, and some of them would give them in this huge combination of neurons. Some of them would give them to the special cells. Some of them would say there's a particular part of the brain where everything comes together. For example, one of the DNA heroes, you know, he wrote about a part of the brain called claustrum, and he said there is a the essence of consciousness of being human there in classroom, and this was in a curious way not confirmed but maybe supported in a recent case report when the deep brain stimulation needle would touch this classroom. Some people would say no, it's another part of the brain, globus pallidus interno. Some people would say no, it is a joint flow of frontal and parietal lobe, you know. So we don't know. We know we are very, very special. We know that there is no discontinuity between us and lower animals. Of course, you know, there's one big discontinuity, and that discontinuity is the last 8 million years ago, because we very successfully, you know, got rid of everybody who was similar to us, like, you know, Neanderthal or I know, Homo erectus or Homo floresiensis. The most dangerous things or beings to us were those who were very, very similar to us, and we somehow got rid of them. So there's a seeming gap, you know, between the chimpanzee and us, but no, there is the continuity, which unfortunately is buried below the ground for archaeologists to discover. Yeah, I think it's realistic. I think actually it's probable. We don't see it now. You know, what we see now is very specialized knowledge of a certain field. You know, we could face it. You know, we're so stunned. I think it was back in, when was it, 1997, when Blue Brain would win over Garry Kasparov. I think it was 4-2. We're stunned. You know, it was something. And of course, from then on, we can see this exponentially growing power of collecting information, of analyzing information, you know, things which were just unimaginable 10 years ago. Of course, I don't think we can see now what one would call strong artificial intelligence or general artificial intelligence. You know, intelligence can be defined in many ways, but one of the very clever, I think, definitions is that it says, okay, you're intelligent if you can somehow survive or prosper in any environment I can put you. You know, I was so full of admiration for recent story, Colombian story of 4 little children, how they survived. You know, it's a stunning story. It's a beautiful story because it tells that in this environment and with this knowledge, these little children, you know, from 1 up to whatever, 13, 14, you know, they were so intelligent because they have had an archaic knowledge of Amazon tribes for generations and generations. They understood about the plants, they understood about the weather, about the dangers. So, yeah, being intelligent meaning that you are adaptable and survivable in many, many different environments. I don't think that artificial intelligence, once you put it out of the frame of its very specialized task, you know, like I know controlling how you speak French or Chinese, or telling you what the weather, I know what is the likelihood that I know what the weather, or it can solve a stunning mathematical problems in a blink of a second. So, but once you put it outside this context, then it's helpless. Well, it doesn't mean that it will be helpless in, let's say, 20 years' time. I'm not sure. I think that that some predictions were made that in about 30, 35, up to 50, we will reach the point of singularity. Singularity, meaning that artificial intelligence creatures will become more intelligent than us. I don't doubt that this moment will come. I think it's inevitable. Many things in evolutions are inevitable. I can imagine, a Homo habilis, thinking about his own beauty of life and, how perfect he is in his own way. And, still when we look at him, he is us, but he is not exactly us. So I think that it will change in many ways. I think it's a destiny. I understand that we feel sorry about it, that we feel nostalgic about it, that we feel that our lives and our form of life and our time is the most perfect time and most perfect life we can imagine. Well, looking from the perspective of 13.8 billion years of universe, one can ask whether that's exactly true. So I think it will come. It will be in different forms. We are having the beginnings of robots or artificial intelligence in our own bodies. You go here, you walk the Ljubljana streets, you will see people who are already having deep brain stimulators for the Parkinson's disease, whose heart is pumped by a machine. Very soon we'll have artificial cells, so parts of our bodies will work with AI, in conjunction with AI, with the feedbacks, with shared decision, our decision and their decision. My decision will be, oh, I just want to have this beautiful chocolate cake. And then the decision of a sensor in my AI sensor, maybe in my blood, will say, no, you will not. I know that you want, but what I will do now, I will send special frequencies to your hypothalamus, so your hypothalamus will not want to have chocolate cake for you anymore, because it's bad for you. Of course, the scenarios are different. They may overrun us. Artificial intelligence may find us actually disturbing and maybe dangerous, like Hal in Odyssey, Odyssey, was it 2000 or something? They may find us nice. They may find us, oh, they are creators of our lives. They are a bit not as intelligent, but they are nice, they are cute, and they will coexist with us, but of course being superior. But there's also the possibility that we will find that the evolution will show that they have their huge advantages, but that there is also an advantage, something which is in us and which they sometimes need. What is this advantage? It's difficult to say. It is a combination of deep-seated evolutionary part of the brain, which gives you emotion, which gives you, your intuition, which gives you decision now, and I don't know why I've decided like this. I've got no argument, but also in combination with this newest part of the brain I was telling you about, von Economo cells, for mirror cells, where I can feel so much empathy for something which maybe is very illogical. I can't. I always remember this. This cult photos? There are some cult photos in human history which change the flow of human history. One of them was from Vietnam War. It was this poor girl when children were attacked with napalm bomb, and there's this poor girl, naked, running and screaming because she's all burnt. And that was very important for the American opinion in '60s to end the Vietnam War. And then I remember another photograph. It was this. I think that little kid was Alan Kurdi. Alan Kurdi was a little boy. It was at the beginning of the Syrian war, and you know the photo showed this little dead body being brought on the shore of Turkey. You know, his little boy. His father lost him somehow. So, and that had very important social and political implication for not unfortunately ending, but you know, sort of managing a Syrian war. So I'm sure that I would hardly become touched and emotioned by a single photography, that it would want to have a broader picture. But you know, sometimes these things work. So maybe there's a possibility that we find a common language, you know, a commonality in different approaches in carbon and silicon. You know, maybe we can find a new quality. But I don't believe that AI will not become more intelligent than we are. Okay, yeah, there are some apps which can be helpful in diagnosis, in prevention, in management, in treatment. Most of them, of course, are, well, practically all of them need a control of human eye and human brain. But of course, for example, for diagnosis, you know, nowadays we have a huge amount of data from different images, from computerized tomographies, from positron emission tomographies. So in many instances, some apps or some, if you want, artificial intelligence can be much more can be more accurate in, let's say, finding a small tumor or finding a atrophy of parts of the brain, maybe in the hippocampus. So the human eye can just miss it, and then the AI can show you. So there are many incoming apps which will help us in the diagnosis. And then, of course, you know, nowadays you just can, for example, if you have a patient with Parkinson's disease and you don't know whether I know some surgical operation is being performed, is it successful 60% or 80%, you know, I just can go to the internet and find it. Of course, there's also the therapeutic, but you know, all these apps which I'm talking in now are not particularly good in the hands of the maybe curious but lay person. And that's why even in the times of advanced AI, I think that my profession, being a doctor, will be one of the last, if ever, to disappear, because you really must put this point there. You know, the app says, oh, you have tumor in left parietal lobe or whatever, but you know, it's still the human mind, the human brain, which says, yeah, but there's I mean, there are no signs for it, you know, and with no other method I can show it. And of course, you've got then as far as prevention is concerned, you've got many apps. Let's say in my field, there are apps which say which first identify what are the risk factors for, let's say, developing Alzheimer's disease, you know, and they would tell you, okay, it's food, it's your genes, it's your how much you sleep, how much you're under stress, and so many apps will offer you such a diagnosis. Okay, I sleep less than 9 hours. I don't. I'm not a big fan of Mediterranean diet and fish. Oh, I prefer sitting like 5 hours in front of the TV with the chips. I don't move. So you can calculate, with these apps, you can calculate, let's say, the risk of getting a stroke or getting dementia. Or on the other hand, for example, again, because we know dementia is starting like 10, 15 years earlier, before you have the first symptoms. So what you can do is and for example, you know that your mother had dementia or something. So there are some apps which can help you training your memory or attention or visual spatial coordination. They are not, I mean, they are quite popular, but I must say that they are not really backed by a very hardened sound science. We are still waiting, because these studies, of course, are very long. It takes almost a generation to get a sensible conclusions. But like maybe 10 years ago, if you would tell me about, oh, but I like meditation and I like, I know, listening to this and this music, I would, if I were well-intended, I would laugh a bit. I said, okay, that's fine, Victor, just carry on. But I would not really, as a doctor, believe in it. Now that we have possibility of seeing what's going on in the living brain while somebody is either meditating or calculating or listening to Bach or something, yeah, we can see that actually there are some beautiful changes in your brain which can be very beneficial for your health, for your memory, for your attention in years to come. Now you told a very nice thing, and this is that although we love algorithms, we love clinical decisions, we have clinical pathways, we have firm rules how to treat whatever. What we really need, what will emerge from all this at the end of the day, will be personal or precision medicine, which will say, for your environment, for your genetic background, for your philosophy, for your striving, this and this and this and this should be followed. Of course, nowadays you can send a drop of your blood to MyHeritage and many, many other services, and they will give you the list of what is your risk of getting a stroke or getting Alzheimer's disease or getting a tumor in the pancreas. But in certain way, this quite nicely ruins the maybe faked authority of a physician, because now in these times you really have to have knowledge. You can't just say, oh, I think so, it is my experience, I'm a big professor, a big doctor, so you have to believe me. No, I mean, times have changed. People go on internet and but still, where we need experience or wisdom or ages of knowledge is putting everything in the context, in a personalized precision medicine. Here you need human mind and years of experience. I mean, neurodegenerative diseases are diseases of old age. If you are, let's say, 62, you have about 1, maybe 2% of possibility that you get Alzheimer. Every 4 or 5 years, this will double. And if we two were now, in this moment, like 85 years old, one of us would have, so 50% would have dementia. So what is very important is that first we are aware of this link of old age and neurodegeneration. So it's very important that society prepares for the silver wave, for societies becoming aged societies. For example, Slovenia, it is not the eldest society in Europe, but it's one of the most rapidly aging. Number two, we have to put lots of money and stuff into the research to understand the mechanisms of aging. Is aging just getting more and more diseases, diabetes and heart failure and Alzheimer's disease and rheumatism, or is aging in itself a specific process from which all these diseases coming? That's very important actually, because if the aging is only the combination of different drugs, then we can treat this with combination of anti-diabetic and antidementives or anti-Parkinsonians. But if aging is something else, as many people in modern medicine are saying, then we should tackle aging in a different way, with so-called senolytics, so with, let's say, substances which target not specific disease, but the process of aging. In order to tackle this process of aging, you must understand pathophysiological mechanism, what is oxidative stress, what are the telomeres, what is the genetics, and so on. So first is recognition, second is research and understanding what is going on in your brain and body when you get the neurodegenerative disease. Then understanding that neurodegenerative diseases are to a large degree very similar. For example, Alzheimer, there's disease of mind, of memory, and Parkinson, there's disease of movement. They look very, very different. But actually, when you go to the cellular level, you see they are practically the same. It's just a different part of the brain which is being affected. So it's very important to understand also that a majority of neurodegenerative diseases start like 10 years earlier, and that you have this beautiful golden 10-15 years window of opportunity. Probably it starts even earlier, probably it starts intrauterine. You know, how you take care of little baby, which you know, there are beautiful I know studies when little unborn babies were listening to the music. I mean, what's going on? So we know that lots is going on even before you are born. We know how vulnerable this first period, when you are a child, when you need love, when you need warmth, when you need, I know, idealism, when you need art, when you need so many things, are for later on. So it's, but particularly when you are in mid-age, you should identify what people are calling risk factors and start living in a different way. For example, sleep, you know, nowadays it's very known that the brain doesn't like too little sleep, like less than maybe 7 hours, but also more than 9 hours. Studies show that it's not good. We understand now how perfectly destructive is not stress by itself, but chronic stress. Stress going on for months and years. Short-lived stress is fine. It will make you warrior, you know, you will fight for your rights. But chronic stress, like years, it destroys your brain, particularly your memory center. We understand now how important it is to remain curious, but childlike curious all your life, even when you are 80 or 90. You know, one of the strengths and beautiful things about child, why his brain are so so active, so is because everything he can find something novel in almost everything. So the moment we say to ourselves, "Oh, I'm tired. I don't want to see to do this or that." You know, you're isolating yourself. That's one of the first steps towards maybe dementia. So it's very, very good that we follow what are the risk factors, and every year we learn about some news. For example, it's only last 2 years that I know that hearing loss is one of the, in middle age, if you have a hearing loss, it's more dangerous than having high blood pressure or high lipids in your blood. Hearing loss, you know, because you don't hear. Then you say, "Oh, I will not go anywhere. I don't hear anything." And then I talk so loudly, and people say, "Oh, don't shout. I can hear well." And so people just isolate themselves. So there are many, many risk factors. I think it's very important that we teach population what are the risk factors and give them incentives to live a different way, to sleep more, to avoid chronic stress, to meditate, to read and go and enjoy arts, to go to mountains or swimming, to be social, to be positive. You know, that's also very, it's called amor fati. You know, you can have either amor fati or odium fati. I can see this in my outpatients when people get sick and they get, I don't know, Parkinson or Alzheimer, beginning of Alzheimer, or some other neurological diseases, you know, and then you can see, particularly in neurology, that sometimes understanding that you can't win every battle of your life, that sometimes it's the acceptance which is the winning position, but not acceptance in a bad mood, in, you know, but acceptance with in taking, okay, that's my destiny. I will try to change it, but if I can't change it, then at least I can have this positive attitude and have amor fati. There are so many. I think, you know, there are two fields which are really amazing. One is the field of genetic, and then the other one is field of neuroscience. And now, very soon, from the field of neuroscience, this field of artificial intelligence will emerge. But as far as neuroscience is concerned, you know, there was this big revolution when other sciences like computer science and technologies and so on enabled us to see into the living brain, what's going on when I love, when I'm jealous, when I'm dying, when I'm hungry. Seeing this in a living brain with new techniques like magnetic resonance, functional magnetic resonance, positron emission tomography. So that was certainly one of the great achievements. Then I would also say something what we called neuroplasticity. You know, when I was a student, we firmly believed that human brain is the organ which doesn't change. You just lose cells, you don't get new ones. But nowadays we know that in human brain, all his life, particularly when we are very young, but also in our 80s, 90s, new cells are being born, at least on 3 different places of the brain. One of these places is hippocampus, is our memory center where all our memories are stored. But not only that new cells are emerging, but also that these cells try to find their way to connect among themselves, you know, and when two cells, when two neurons connect, what does it mean? It may mean that you've learned a new French word. It may mean that you've learned a step with tango. It may mean that you have learned what happened, I don't know, 1914 in Sarajevo or something, and what impact this has for history. So I would say that this, the knowledge of neuroplasticity and neuroneogenesis, it's called, really opened huge vistas. And then, of course, this new abilities, when I can, with the power of my thought, actually via brain-computer interfaces, I can make my hand, even if I'm paralyzed, I can make, with the power of my mind, my arm artificial or not artificial, moving, and having a glass of water, or even just thinking, and this glass of water is being taken by a chimp in Tokyo, for example. So, and now we are approaching to your whatever second question, when you said, what about artificial intelligence? We are the creators of artificial intelligence. We may be our own executors, or we may be our own and all this, because of the sheer power of our brain. Yeah, I think I'm one of those people who are basically optimistic as far as the development of the human race brain is concerned. We already witnessed, your grandmother, if she was born, or grandmother, if she was born at the beginning of the 20th century, when the first patient with Alzheimer's disease would be discovered, so the age of the life expectancy was less than 50 years. Actually, it was 44 years, but because there were two peaks of mortality. One was the same as today, so old people were dying because of old age, but then you had also this other peak, and the other peak were little children on birth, or their mothers, or pregnant mothers, or mothers just giving birth, and then little children catching infection when they were 4 years. There were no antibiotics, no analgesics, no antipsychotics, nothing there at the beginning of the 20th century. So life expectancy was very low. Even if you count for this child mortality, or young man mortality in the in First World War. I mean, Europe collapsed in new war every 20 years in last century. So many young people died unnecessarily. So, but even if you count for this, people would not live on average more than 50 years. Nowadays, an average Slovenian woman would live slightly above 80, and a Slovenian man would live slightly below 80. So it's almost doubled. It's almost doubled. And now there's this important task, not only to prolong our life, and there are two groups which have somehow different view on how much we can live. Some people would say, if technology is kind to us, and medicine skillful in taking and using this technology, then there's no reason we could not live hundreds of years, like Methuselah, like all those first people from the Old Testament, which would live 800-900 years ago. But then the other larger group would say, no, we have a date of expiry in our genes, in our life, and majority would agree that date of expiry or our life would be, the possibility would be about 120 to 150. The longest living woman on this planet was was a French, Jeanne Calment, and she was, I think, 123 or something when she died. So yes, we are prolonging our life, chronological life. We can prolong it even further, but now what you asked is, what is important is also to improve quality of life. It's not the same if the last 30 years or 40 years of your life you are spending, in your bed with pain here and there and everywhere, and not knowing actually who you are and who are those kind people around you, or if these 40 years are being lived in a quality, particularly mental quality of and social quality of life. And I think medicine is doing a lot by gaining new knowledge, by spreading knowledge like you are doing now, spreading knowledge about how much to sleep, what to eat, how much to run, why to go to the gallery and watching, Picasso, or why listening to Bedřich Smetana. What to do with our genes, what to do with the telomeres, in what way to use enhancers, mind or brain enhancers, whether to use them, whether not. So now medicine is having, and technologies are having, huge tools. I think it will really depend. So it's not only prolonging chronological age, which we are doing, it's also improving biological age. Somebody, when they are 80, they can look either 60 or 100, and they are, so that's very important. But then we are having also some other ages, like psychological age, which is very much an invention probably of this century, and that's an interesting phenomenon, that people, when they are approximately 50 or 60, they would feel like almost 10 years younger. If you ask somebody, I know, how old are you?
48.
And you would feel like what?
Maybe like 30, 35.
Yeah, so that's a phenomenon of our century. Probably it was not, some people say it was not around like in 13th, 14th century. And why is it? We don't understand. One of the reasons can be that we really, biologically, nowadays, if you look somebody, when I was a young doctor, people would in Slovenia would retire with their 55th year, I think, and then, women and men in their 50s, they were really old. You could see, that they are decrepit, they had rheumatism, they could hardly move. Nowadays, being 50 is something else. 65 or 70 is a new 50. So that's, that can be one explanation. The other would be that we are very much, that's the century which presses you very, very much of staying younger. So that's the concept of psychological age. We are having a concept of social age, and so there are many ages around, but I think that at least biological age medicine can improve, and I just hope that people will be so wise and clever, and follow peace and the way of knowledge. Knowledge is very important. There is a difference, not if you would look the two brains, like macroscopically, like this, but I'll tell you that brain is changing all the time. Your brain now, after this talk, and mine will be slightly different than when it was when we started to talk. So these processes of brain cells, brain networks rearranging, adapting, readapting, growing, you know, there are two organs in our body which for which there's a beautiful saying: use it or lose it. That's muscle and that's brain cells. So the microstructure, the micro networks, how cells are connected in a brain of David, who lives in 2023, are very different from Anushka, who lived maybe in whatever 1823. Very, very different. It's also interesting that in last 30,000 years, one of the interesting mysteries of human brain, in the last 30,000 or 40,000 years, we lost quite a lot of brain. We lost the brain tissue of a size of a golf, no, of a tennis ball. Why? We don't understand. Now, the optimistic explanation would be that the internal wiring of our brain is becoming much more efficient, and that we actually don't need so much brain, because nature, evolution always go to a sort of, you know, rational, as small as possible way, not to have unnecessary tissues. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a future of it. Some people even say that we will not need our bodies, that we can download our brain, or that we can put the brain in a vat. I wouldn't go so far. I think that an important element, that our brain is as it is, that we enjoy certain things, that we love certain things or hate certain things, is because of this important bilateral highway between our body and our brain. Don't forget that actually the brain was created, if I may use this occurred because we wanted to move from spot A to spot B. If we do not move from a spot to spot B, we actually, as this sea anemone, as this plant showed very clearly, we don't need a brain. So still we need something what we can move around, and that's our body. No, it should absolutely be support. Not, you know, there's a difference between being forced, you know, being every day, every citizen must get up at 5 o'clock, then doing yoga for half an hour, then doing Tai Chi for, no, not this way. Then probably one's life can be better spent, but well-intended and modern and democratic society should enhance, should stimulate those activities which are shown to be as risk factors for either neurodegenerative diseases, or for, I know, bad mood, or for crime, whatever. And not only in adult people. It should really start caring intra-uterinum.